3, 2.
And action!
My name is Marisa Magallanes.
Cy Lugo.
Rhiannon Ballinger.
Kelly.
Joseph Berry.
Nefertiti.
I'm a student right here at Sacramento State University.
My major is government.
Communications, intercultural emphasis.
I'm a junior transfer.
I'm a husband.
I'm a grandmother.
I'm a person with disability.
Is there any handicap parking? You can just let me off here. Hey there. This is you. Well, at least for the next 15 minutes. You're a 20-year-old communications major in your 3rd year of college. You're working 1 job, 1 internship, and taking 4 classes. And as if that's not enough, yesterday you decided to stick a GoPro on your wheelchair and start filming. You feel that filming in your perspective with a GoPro is a little bit more interesting than the average Joe's jog down the street. But students with disabilities all have vastly different experiences, which is why you're trying to capture as many stories as you can. You're going to be honest though. The main reason you're making this documentary is because you've had a pretty tough transition and want to try and make college even more accessible for people with disabilities. So with that not so hidden agenda out of the way, you'll set the tone with a simple quotation.
This is a visual world. It's a visual school. It really is. It seems that I feel like I'm a week behind the world in my visual impairment. I feel like I'm a week behind the world. In every class, there was always a chart or a diagram, a pie chart or something that I simply would not be able to see. And relying on other people's interpretations, whether it be a note taker or a scribe or a reader, I would just be doing that, relying on their interpretations. And I've come to realize that there's some things that I physically will never be able to do as a non-visual person. So I take that in stride. I use the accommodations given to me from the SSWD, that's our Student Services with Disabilities, to equal the playing field.
I have a learning disability and I have ADD. The High Tech Resource Center is a really good place to go, and the computers in there are pretty freaking awesome. I love how they have the 2 screens because it makes doing work so much easier.
They have been really helpful because for me to understand, I have to see with my fingers to read. And now I have textbooks in alt media, which is Braille for me.
They do fall short in some aspects. You know, the High Tech Center isn't open all day. Things are very far apart from each other. You know, if I need to get to Lassen Hall, not every place on campus is accommodating.
Thank goodness. You got scared that as soon as you started filming, everything would immediately become accessible. But no matter what you do, you can always count on the ADA tables to be out of place. Having an accessible desk is the main accommodation you need, and you consider yourself lucky in that respect. At the same time, you've been going here for 3 years, and without fail, you've had to move these desks into the proper accessible positions on a daily basis, which can be extremely difficult since you can barely lift more than 2 pounds. Sometimes, in the large lectures, if the desk isn't in the right spot, you just take notes on your lap.
I feel like they just put a table in there to mark off that, oh, there's, you know, we have accommodations for students with disabilities, but it doesn't matter where it's placed.
There are so many people, even professors and students who have been around a while, that have absolutely no idea what the blue dots on the floor are for, what the real importance of a table is. And I think if I could express anything, it would be those things, just to say, okay, wait a minute, if I do this, thinking it's okay, and it's something natural to do in a classroom, right? Move stuff around, get in groups, and I don't put it back where it needs to go, and I don't know what the blue dots mean, then someone's going to come in and have a really difficult time just trying to sit down and perhaps You get some help, people are gracious. But then that kind of puts you on the spot too, because everyone's having to move your furniture around. Right?
There are some inherent disadvantages to using the accommodations that were provided to me. For instance, I may receive double time on all exams, but those might be exams that might be on our electronic system, our SAC-CT system, which is extremely hard to navigate non-visually with adaptive technology. Also, since I won't be able to physically read for myself, me being a psychology major, I've heard various interpretations of what psychological terms are supposed to sound like. If the reader is perhaps a person whose English is not their first language or primary language. There's also interpretations if they don't know the subject matter. But then there are accommodations that I must live by because that's the nature of my disability.
Before you start college, you have these connotations about what type of treatment you'll receive or how it's going to be, or during my life, I've had different run-ins with different people who've treated me differently, if you will. And so you worry.
There has been a few teachers that have given me a hard time for my accommodations. Just asking for, can I take my test in the testing center? And like, oh, you're going to make me walk all the way across campus. Just little comments like that that make it seem like it's the worst thing in the world to ask for the accommodations that I really actually do need.
Being that, I don't look disabled, I'm clearly able-bodied, I'm in a master's program, I have all of these accomplishments that I've made. It's really kind of off-putting when I do tell somebody and they're just like, no, or, well, that's not really a problem, So for me, it's just been like actually teaching people, not in my program, because in social work, people get it, they understand. But outside of that, it's really hard to explain to people what it is that I do go through.
You reached a really low point last year. You had gotten your dream job where you get to help facilitate and teach students who want extra help in classes like Government 1. On your first day, you got to Lassen Hall, went to the elevator, and pressed the button. Nothing happened. You waited. And waited. Then you were told that it hadn't been working all morning. It was out for 2 weeks after that. Nobody sent you any notification. When you did talk to an anonymous Sac State staff member about how you would be able to get to work every day, you were told, you're lucky you didn't get stuck in the elevator yourself. And then you were told to contact your work and have them sort out a plan. Between this and your desks having to be placed in areas where you couldn't see whiteboards or projector screens due to fire code, you just hit a really low point. You emailed Sacramento State administration to voice your concerns, and nobody ever got back to you.
I'm very social by nature. I roll by people and I meet their eyes and I smile, and I generally do have a smile, I have a terminal smile. And that's how I want to see the world and how I want them to see me. Although the uncomfortable moments, I think, come when you go by a table, and maybe it's some Greek thing or, whatever it is. And very often you'll get an uncomfortable look or somebody's really unsure, and there's a disconnect there. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Why wouldn't I want to, be a part of a fraternity? Or, why would you think that I wouldn't be appropriate for that?
I know two people, one's in fraternity and one is in a sorority. They had to hide their disability, and they're visually impaired as well.
What's the policy in the military? They got don't ask, don't tell kind of thing. It was kind of like that kind of feeling, when you're walking by, they used to have all the booths out, where they're recruiting and everything. Nobody ever approached me. No one said, hey, you want to join our club? And maybe it was for the better, I'm not sure, but nah, for whatever reason, and I'm sure that disability has a lot to do with it, being in clubs really wasn't an option. You know what I mean?
You're a pretty creative person, in case you haven't already noticed. And as such, you have ideas, like the idea of creating a system-wide email notification process when elevators go down for students registered with SSWD, or of creating videos for professors to watch to help them understand how to interact and better serve their students with disabilities. It's just frustrating when you have to be polite and do everything according to the process, and then still see no results.
I would like, all the available thousands of years of experience in counseling, in education, in academia, for them to less bump heads and more have a meeting of the minds. I would like to see in perhaps our first weeks, maybe a special orientation for those with disability, to learn the layout of the campus, to learn the vital resources that we have, and to do what we need to do so on the first day of classes, we hit the ground running with nothing impeding our academic progress.
They should have more people with disabilities actually in positions of power, whether it's with the student services programs. A lot of times they're not really in touch with the actual needs or the intricacies of people who have disabilities and what they go through on campus.
It's really difficult to live in a world that wasn't intended for you to use. And it's not just the structural barriers. It's the societal ones. Since our inception, we're taught as kids that normal means walking and running around, and just being able to function at a certain level. Society conditions us to not think twice about people who are able-bodied or look, again, normal. But in that way, it also conditions us to reject those who don't fit that mold.
I think it's really important to put a face to the students that have disabilities. People walk by the SSWD office and maybe don't even know what it even is.
For a person that has to do all the required work, reading, getting to school, getting home from school, and dealing with all the academia frustrations involved with getting a degree, we have to deal with it and go beyond the call of duty for ourselves.
We all have things that we need or can use from each other, or ways we can help each other. And it usually starts with just a basic understanding of who the other person is, by culture, by language, by whatever those things that could disconnect us are. And I think by speaking up and doing things such as this, that there's an opportunity for more people to have an understanding of other people, and to recognize that, yes, we are all part of the same community, and can work together once we know each other.